I'm Kristina Scott, and we're here in 5 Points South in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm the executive director of the Alabama Poverty Project, which educates and equips Alabamians to eradicate poverty. Alabama is the sixth poorest state in the country, and 1 in 5 Alabamians lives below the federal poverty line, and 1 in 4 children. So it's like a one campaign that is focused on poverty here in Alabama. Was at a Constitutional Reform Coalition meeting and met the executive director of the Alabama Poverty Project, who announced that he was moving to Indiana. And I said, oh, that's a job for me. Sent in my resume and waited for a long time and then went and interviewed. And I have to say that after I left the interview, I wanted the job even more than I did when I came there, because through my research and through talking with my board members, I realized the great needs we have here in Alabama. I thought it was a good fit for my skill set, since I was used to doing social justice work in poor communities. But then I also really got connected to the history of Alabama and how Alabama's history really continues to impact its present. And I was a history major in undergrad, and I'm a recovering lawyer. And so I get to use those interests and skill sets to try to impact social change here. As for what's inside of me that has really led me down this path, I think part of it comes from growing up with my mom being a teacher, and we moved around a lot. My dad worked in the defense industry, and so we moved from contract to contract. It was kind of like being in the military, but instead of being in the military, we followed the space program or whatever defense contract he was working on. And when we lived in Slidell, Louisiana, my dad was working on the space shuttle, and we lived across Lake Pontchartrain in Slidell. And my mom taught in a school that had been an African-American school before desegregation, and heard her stories of the kids that she was teaching who had never seen a dentist, who didn't have winter coats. We had to clean out our coat closets our closets so that they had clothes to wear, because kids were coming to school in January in summer dresses. And so it is the South, but it does get cold, and kids need warm clothes. And then also my uncle was a professor at the University of North Louisiana in Monroe, Louisiana, which is in the northeast corner of the state. And so the only way to get from Slidell to Monroe was to take back roads. And so we went through the poorest section of Louisiana, where cotton was still being grown. You would drive on these back roads, and cotton fields would be on either side of you, and you'd see the shacks people lived in, because they were still the sharecropping shacks. And there'd be 20 phones at the convenience store, because people didn't have phones in their houses, and so the payphone at the convenience store was their telephone. And you could see the great needs that were there in our own country. Another interesting thing about Alabama is that we have the second biggest gap between rich and poor in the country. And so people say, well, moving from Los Angeles to Alabama must have been such a shock. And it was. But there are many differences. As many differences there are also many similarities. We have extraordinary wealth here in Birmingham. We also have extraordinary poverty. Just like we did in Los Angeles, where you have the rich neighborhoods that people see on TV, we also had some very, very poor neighborhoods, and the same thing exists here in Birmingham. And also in Birmingham, the air quality is the 5th worst in the country. It's right behind Los Angeles and the Central Valley of California. And so that was a big shock to me, because it's a beautiful place. 2/3 of the state is covered in trees, but yet we have these belching smokestacks and terrible air quality. Well, I hope to, on an organizational sense, it's a very small organization, and so I hope to grow the organization and give it some organizational infrastructure. And so that's a great way to use my law degree to help increase its organizational capacity. But then I also want to work with young people and get them excited about the changes they can make, to both educate them about the needs we have here in Alabama, and then also equip them with the tools they need to make social change. And so Alabama is one of the most religious states in the country. 82% of Alabamians say that God plays an important role in their everyday life. And so a lot of the volunteer work and fundraising goes on through churches. And it's no accident that my office is here in one of the oldest churches in Birmingham. But I want to connect that passion to give back and to be involved in the community with a sense of the needs there are. And I also want to, folks go on mission trips, and they may go to Louisiana or they go overseas on mission trips, and to be able to capture that excitement they have about the work they do overseas or in a different state, and being able to do it and have it be part of their everyday life here in Alabama. And to also understand that when you do it here in your home, you have a chance to really see the change as it happens, and it's much harder work because change isn't immediate. Our website, we have a new website at alabamapossible.org, which gives me a great opportunity to talk about something that I'm really excited about, because when I got here, the organization was founded as the Alabama Poverty Project. And I think it's really important to focus on the possibilities and the power we have to achieve our potential. And so that's why we're launching this Alabama Possible campaign, because no one should say that we can't do it or it can't get done or that you can't achieve your potential. Whether you're a young person who lives in poverty and you have bigger dreams for your life, or you are a young person who's passionate about social change. And so people might be cynical. People who are older than you, been around longer, might be cynical. I don't want people to be cynical. I want to focus on the possibilities, and inherent in the word possible is the power we have to achieve that possibility. So you can go to alabamapossible.org, and if you're a person in need, we can connect you with service providers. We don't provide direct service, but we have amazing service providers here in the state. And if you're a young person who wants to, or a person of any age who wants to get more involved in their community, we'll help connect you with ways to do that. So alabamapossible.org. I was very lucky to be mentored by people who had that same passion for social justice and kind of helped show me what one person can do. President Obama talks a lot about you are the one you've been waiting for, and I think that's even more important than be the change you want to see in the world, because no one's coming to save you, and no one's coming to change the world. It's up to you to make that change. And so I always keep that in the back of my head. If I'm not willing to stand up and do what I believe, then who's going to be? I can't sit around and wait for someone else to do it. That's actually funny that you say following, because one of my mantras is follow your bliss. And so, but that takes a lot of courage, and it's not so much a selfish thing about following your bliss and just doing what makes you happy, but it's really the work you do and finding what's going to make you happy, and then being brave enough to continue on that path. And so I would say to figure out what makes you happy and have the courage to follow your bliss. And then also be brave enough to do what you want to because you are the one you've been waiting for.